In this pod-slice summary of the PBD Podcast, Patrick Bet-David engages in a revealing conversation with renowned football player Terrell Owens. The interactive session touches the realms of Owens' football career, his insights into the sport, and his personal life. Owens shares his experience growing up in Alabama, raised by his grandmother and mother. Even though sport was a part of his life, it was not until later he realized his affinity for football. He admits that despite being a football player, he's more of a basketball fan at heart. The conversation navigates through his journey in the NFL, calling out his impressive record: third all-time in yards touchdowns, regular season receptions 1078, 15934 yards, 150 touchdowns, and being the only player to catch a touchdown with every single NFL team. He expresses his opinions about the contemporary game, where he feels that the game is a tad bit less physical these days, causing an inflation of receiver yards and catches. Reflecting on his experience catching passes from different players, he discloses that you can certainly tell the difference between the throw of a right-handed quarterback and a left-handed one. His primary encounter with a left-handed throw was with Steve Young, and it took him a while to get used to the different ball spin. Among the quarterbacks he played with, he surprisingly chooses Ryan Fitzpatrick as his favorite. According to Owens, Fitzpatrick was never with a team long-term as the main starter, but he played very well when presented with the opportunity. He also reminisces about his time in Buffalo, hinting that it was a pivotal moment in his career. Generously sharing anecdotes from his illustrious career, Owens offered listeners an inside look into the NFL from the perspective of one of the game's greatest receivers. From interesting insights on quarterbacks to ever-evolving game dynamics, he leaves no stone unturned in this deep dive into American football. Owens recollects his memorable rookie years, his rise to fame, and the ensuing progression of his football career. Despite coming late onto the scene, he talks about his defining moments, such as scoring 4 touchdowns against Marshall, the then-defending national champions. To his surprise, he was vaulted to fame shortly after. Disclosing the lack of parental guidance in honing his football skills, Owens mentioned the pivotal roles his mother and grandmother played in his upbringing. He realized his distinct talents in high school when he made it to the basketball and baseball teams. One of the most critical aspects Owens highlights throughout the conversation is his evolution as a player. He goes into depth about how differentiating factors like desire, dedication, and discipline led him through his journey. This revelation compelled him to reflect on how discipline separates the good from the great. Owens contends that he gradually fell in love with the sport as he was becoming comfortable with the process to become a top receiver around the beginning of his 9th year when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. He acknowledged the influence and mentoring from his co-players at San Francisco shortly after his 1996 draft, which instilled professionalism in him. He also discloses that most of his conditioning and training off-season only started happening in his 9th year. Owens recognizes that having personal trainers and running routes during the off-season, something which is common among players today, would have further amplified his career had he done it early. In Patrick's conversation with Terrell Owens, the football legend reveals a wealth of information about his career, imparting wisdom he gleaned along the way. Amidst discussions about training regimens, discipline, and Owens' rise to stardom, listeners will find a trove of captivating stories and crucial insights about American football's intricate world. In the subsequent part of this podcast, to delves into his early professional years, mentioning how he started ingraining himself in the sport. Owens only began honing his receiver skills and building his discipline when he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. He talks about the physical attributes, his height, and the prototypical body he had for a receiver. However, Owens also recognizes he was underdeveloped in other vital areas and needed to work on his technique. Owens expresses his journey, building on his natural athletic abilities and working on the training aspect of the game. He found himself struggling with defenses, recognizing his limitations. Owens shares an anecdote about working with a martial arts instructor, George Chung, who taught him techniques to improve his game, specifically to overcome bump and run, a defensive tactic he struggled with earlier in his career. An intriguing aspect is Owens' acknowledgement that he didn't develop an affinity for football until his 9th year in the NFL. He initially saw it as a game he was naturally good at, something that seemed amusing as others struggled to cope with the sport's challenges. Further, Owens talks about his coachability. He accredits his coaches Larry Curie and George Stewart, who initially was his special teams coach, later becoming his receiver coach. He appreciated their tenacity and learning from their critique, which often was hard to digest, but pushed Owens to refine his skills. Owens notes the importance of off-the-field training and the impact of having a personal trainer that he was introduced to on a basketball court. Owens admits that his early career would have looked significantly different if not for his personal trainer. Reflecting on his journey, Patrick Bet-David redirects the conversation to explore what having a father figure in Owens' life could have meant. Owens recognizes the value of having a father figure to offer advice, structure, and a voice of comfort, especially given the gendered expertise they bring into a child's upbringing. Acknowledging his single-parent upbringing, he stresses the roles of his mom and grandmother in his upbringing, specifically the disciplining and position of authority his grandmother held. This segment of the podcast intimately displays Owens' journey, allowing us to grasp the hard work and personal struggles often hidden behind the floodlights on the playing field. As Owens navigates the conversation with candor, we see a glimpse of his determination, dedication, and resilience that significantly shaped his football career. Throughout his life, Owens attributed much of his learning and discipline to the firm authority of his grandmother. Raised in an era of segregation and institutional racism, his grandmother passed on the resilience and strength she gained through her experiences, setting base for Owens' tough upbringing. Owens progressively understood his family's history and the depths of racism through her stories, shaping his perception and experience as he grew older. Having grown under the care of a single parent, Owens highly values the role of a father figure, offering guidance and stability. As such, he endeavors to be present and supportive in his kids' lives, a contrast from his own upbringing. He speaks openly about his strained relationship with his father, who he only learned was his biological father around the age of 11 or 12. Despite the revelation in his father's proximity, living just across the street, their relationship remained relatively the same, merely cordial. Now, Owens makes a point to visit his father whenever he's home, respecting the man without holding any expectations. Owens' NFL journey wasn't easy. He speaks candidly about the pressure he felt in his initial years. Making a name for himself post his Green Bay playoff game, Owens derived confidence, but also began to feel the mounting pressure. The weight of performance, matched with the ambition to live up to Jerry Rice's legacy, meant that Owens found himself pushing too hard, often causing fumbles or dropped passes. Owens reveals that it's in these moments of relentless pressure that his learned resilience saw him through. Diverting his focus to the next play, pursuing valuable learning through every mistake, built the superstar that he would eventually become. This segment helps us comprehend Owens' journey. We see the constant learning and unlearning that underlines his career, marking every high and low as significant experiences. By sharing the importance of resilience, presence, and perseverance, Owens gives us valuable insight into his life and mindset, allowing us to understand the person behind the athlete. In this portion of the transcript, Owens delves deeper into his NFL experience, discussing factors like training, nutrition, and motivation that played vital roles in his career. He speaks about observing superstar players, being inspired by their lifestyle, and aspiring to work hard on the field to achieve that status. This drive and ambition led him to train rigorously in the offseason, something he took personally when he noticed his teammates not investing the same level of time and energy. Owens also broaches the topic of the pressure he felt when the San Francisco 49 ERs moved on from star player Jerry Rice, handing over the receiver position responsibility to Owens, a significant vote of confidence in his potential. In acknowledging this monumental shift in his career, Owens recognizes his small-town origins and humble upbringing, signifying the true extent of his success story. Questions about perceived rivalry or competition with Jerry Rice come to the forefront, leading Owens to clarify that while he respected Rice greatly, he felt he had the potential to surpass his success given a longer career span. He argues the point that the absence of a Super Bowl championship does not reflect negatively on his career, standing firm on his belief that his performance on the field is a testament to his skills and dedication. Owens finishes by reflecting on his college career, noticing that most fans are more familiar with his NFL journey than his time in college. Despite playing for smaller schools, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, the recognition and fame came with his professional career that had showcased monumental moments like going to the Super Bowl on a broken leg or playing for the 49 ERs, Eagles, and Cowboys. His successes etched in the minds of football fans around the world. In the conversation, Owens drew a comparison between the NBA and NFL, saying that, though he loves basketball, he believes he could be ranked as the Michael Jordan of NFL receivers. His self-confidence came from the level at which he played, taking into consideration his humble beginnings. Owens sees himself in the NFL's GOAT conversation, not just because of the stats, but also because of his skills and style of play. Owens goes on to highlight his rivalry with Randy Moss, noting that he considered himself superior because of his active participation in all parts of the game. He explains that he played every facet of the game, including blocking, catching the ball over the middle, and running into the holes created by his team. He attributes his success to his coaches at every stage who saw his potential and did not want him to take it for granted. Speaking more on his physicality and role on the team, Owens makes a point to mention his knack for making himself available for the quarterback to pass the ball to, thus playing an instrumental role in plays that required instant decision-making. In addition to his skill set, the size and height advantage also played a significant part in his game, particularly in the scramble drill, where height and positional awareness were crucial. In a conversation comparing Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, Owens says that he would probably pick Joe Montana because of his accuracy, timing, and the way he created different matchups for the ball. Owens believes the level of success he would have achieved with Montana's accurate ball placement would have been higher. He goes on to compare the eras of football, emphasizing that the game has changed dramatically over time, particularly in regard to the physicality of the game. His era, he says, was more physical than the current era, with a need for craftiness and awareness in the face of different player interference rules. He suggests that because the physicality has declined, number stats for current players might be inflated, as they don't have to endure as much on-field contact as in previous eras. In this segment from the PBD Podcast, Owens continues his deep dive into the dynamic world of NFL and how his experiences have shaped his understanding of the game. Owens transitioned the discussion onto the topic of Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. He recalls his presence on their show and expresses his views on Smith's perspective on cultural matters. During the show, Owens highlighted Smith's harsh stance against Colin Kaepernick's attempts to re-enter the league, which, in Owens' view, showed a disregard to issues concerning cultural sensitivity and awareness. The conversation then shifted to Kaepernick's controversial relationship with the NFL. Owens posits the argument that maybe both Kaepernick and the NFL are to blame for the footballer's exclusion. Owens remarks on Kaepernick's legal suit against the NFL, stating it might be a factor influencing the league's reluctance to let him play again. Yet he also speculates that Kaepernick might be an obstacle to his own success. Owens expresses disappointment that Kaepernick has not been more responsive to his outreach attempts, stating he has tried multiple times to get in touch with him but never received any response. Despite this, he insists on defending Kaepernick based on his understanding of the situation, not any personal rapport. Owens then brings attention to the dichotomy between Stephen A. Smith's character and his conduct on air, stating that the sports commentator has shown a notable change in his style and delivery over the years. He notes that Smith seems to take different stances when commenting on specific athletes, which has left some viewers questioning his credibility and fairness. Again, Owens's analysis is based upon observation, not personal conflict. Throughout the conversation, Owens offers a thoughtful and reflective deep dive into the character dynamics at play in professional sports media. In this portion of the podcast, Owens further explains his issues with Stephen A. Smith, voicing his displeasure with how Smith came across when handling documents related to a perceived pending expose of Owens, an incident that infuriated Owens given his nature of being a very open and honest person. Next, the conversation steers towards Kaepernick again, with reflections on his controversial moves and the potential ulterior motives behind them. The hypocrisy of Kaepernick criticizing the league and then showing interest in participating is discussed, alongside allegations of racism against his white parents. The topic of Kaepernick's financial gains from Nike, Disney, and Netflix are also dissected, leading to a debate on whether these endeavors were a genuine cause or just a money grab. In response to these criticisms, Owens touches upon his upcoming documentary, which aims to portray his life with raw honesty. He emphasizes that the narrative will not sugarcoat his life, but instead, it will highlight both his imperfections and the struggles he faced in the NFL. Shedding light on these aspects of his life, he talks about the negative experiences with coaches like Steve Marucci and disparities in treatment between him and other players like Jeff Garcia. Among the instances he mentions, Owens cites a situation where he was penalized unreasonably for being late to a practice without being given an opportunity to explain himself, an example he uses to highlight the systemic racism he believes he experienced during his NFL career. Towards the end of this segment, Owens speaks in detail about the unfair fine he received when he was late for practice, compared to his peers who only had to buy team lunch as a penalty. He recounts how he contested the penalty, getting support from other coaches who agreed that the treatment towards him was undeserved and unfair. In wrapping up, Owens reflects on the potential motivation for such treatments, suggesting it could have been a power play to display dominance and maintain control within the team settings. Nonetheless, Owens stands his ground on the unfairness of the entire ordeal, indicating that he doesn't shy away from fighting back, even if it escalates the tension between him and the coaching staff. Owens speaks at length about his experiences with different coaches throughout his time in the NFL, highlighting his favorite coach, Andy Reid. He praises Reid's unique approach to the game and his ability to position Owens in ways that allowed him to play at his best. This is demonstrated with statistics showing how Reid utilized Owens' speed and athleticism in his offensive strategies during his time with the Eagles, resulting in impressive scoring records. Delving into their relationship, Owens talks about how Reid's coaching style was a breath of fresh air, with zero personal conflict between them. The only issue, he teasingly narrates, was about the wearing of tights for practice, an issue that resulted in a bet upon the number of touchdowns Owens could score in a season. Switching gears, the discussion also highlights the menacing figure of Owens on the field and what a daunting task it must have been for any opposing player to defend against this fast, physically imposing receiver. The conversation segues into Reid's early playing days, concluding with a brief Q&A section mentioning a winning trivia question about who Owens' favorite quarterback was during his career, with the correct answer being Ryan Fitzpatrick. Owens undoubtedly has high respect for coaches like Reid, who he felt guided him effectively, maximized his talents, and contributed positively to his career. These insights give the audience more context into the dynamics and significance of the coach-player relationship in the NFL and Owens' experiences within it. In an engaging interaction, Bet David prompts listeners to explore the various topics tackled in the podcast, including Owens' football career, financial advice, contracts, and potential questions from young aspiring athletes. Anchoring onto a unique point of discussion, Owens is asked to discuss a product line he's recently dabbled in, his signature range of candles. Owens opens up about an interesting divergence in his career, his venture into the world of scented candles. His collection, founded on the pillars of success he abides by, desire, dedication, and discipline, includes individual fragrances that complement each tenet. He employed an intentional strategy, mirroring his athletic career, by designing scents that play on human senses. Each fragrance combination holds a meaningful correlation to the overall theme they represent. Desire blends cashmere vanilla, dark labdanum rose, and saffron tobacco. Dedication mixes sage, lavender, rose, and amber. And discipline combines marigold, cedar, musk, woody leather, and brandy. Added to this intricate lineup is the interesting inception of his fourth candle, developed during the pandemic, to pair with his venture into the wine industry under the label 81. Then, Owens highlights the quintessential candle in the collection, Tough Love, a tribute to his late grandmother who passed away due to Alzheimer's, intended to aid in increasing funding and awareness for the disease. Drawing upon nostalgic olfactory memories of his grandmother's influence, the Tough Love scent consists of dried floral, incense, and a softer note of cashmere plum. Bet David commends Owens' attention to detail and the careful thought process behind the collection, dubbing him the candle scientist. The discussion piques listeners' curiosity about the candle line, amalgamating Owens' professional ethos with the subtleties of sensory experiences. This unexpected exploration into fragrances provides a fresh perspective on Owens, beyond his esteemed athletic career, demonstrating his versatile interests and entrepreneurial tenacity. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of The Pod Slice.